Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the opportunity to stand up and speak on a bill like C-288, a bill which would give certain tax incentives to graduates who return to their region, return to rural regions across the country, and in doing so provide important services to those regions and provide the basis of the same kind of services that people in metropolitan areas take for granted. I live in a very rural area. My riding is slightly larger than the province of Ontario, and within it we have a few people. We've also had a very expanding economy in the last decade through the development of the diamond fields. Interestingly enough, Mr. Speaker, as the economy expanded in the last 4 or 5 years, the population declined. The population declined, although we had a huge expansion in our gross domestic product. Why was that, Mr. Speaker? It wasn't because young people don't like living in the north and living in there. I think if you check, you'll find that that the allure of the north is big among young people across the country. And there are many young people that would like to live in rural and remote areas. It's the cost of living, Mr. Speaker. The cost of living in the northern conditions is so high that people simply can't make ends meet, and they relocate. We find that we replace a lot of these people with fly-in workers from across the country, from Newfoundland, from Nova Scotia, even from Ottawa here, Mr. Speaker. I've sat in the airport in Ottawa and heard the talk of people around me that were headed to the Diavec diamond mines in the Northwest Territories. So right across the country, people take advantage of the economic opportunities in rural regions, but they don't live there, and they don't provide service. They don't provide continuity of service. They, in many of them, I've lived in the north all my life, never had an opportunity to have a family doctor. Dealt with locum doctors throughout my whole life. I was lucky enough to live in a community that actually had locum doctors. Many of the smaller communities might be lucky to have locum nurse practitioners. They might be lucky enough to have a nurse in a nursing station. So many of the communities really do suffer because of the cost of living and the lack of the kind of incentives that used to exist for living in the north. When my parents moved to the north in the 50s and through the 60s, there was programs in place where all the costs of education for young northerners were paid. Young northerners could go to university, they could go to technical schools, they could go to colleges in the south, and they would see that their costs were completely covered. It was a great system. It encouraged young people to get their education, and as time went on, the governments of the region got smarter and said, well, if you want to get this kind of break, then rather than just giving it to you, we'll give you a remissible loan based on your years of time that you come back to the region and work there, and that system has worked quite well as well. So what we're seeing with this type of program, this type of effort, is something that's actually replicated in the Northwest Territories now. It's one of the ways that we try to bring our young people back into the Northwest Territories and try to get them to work and live there. Why is that important? Because the north and rural areas in Canada are great revenue generators for the rest of Canada. Where are the mining industries in this country? Where's the oil and gas exploration? Where's the things that make our economy run? They're in rural areas. They're in northern areas. And those things are so important to our economy, and they're so important that we have people that can live and work in those areas and build those areas as successful places. Mr. Speaker, the estimates of the mining industry is that they're going to need 80,000 new workers over the next 2 decades to service the mining industry. They're desperate. They're desperate to find people to come and work in those regions, to enjoy the opportunities that come in the mining industry, and to settle and take it seriously to work there. This, the type of program that we're offering up here with this C-288 is one example of using the tax system, utilizing the tax system nationally across the country to help many regions, to help all the regions in a uniform fashion. Well, we do have one program like that, and it's something when I first came to Parliament I worked very hard on to approve, because we have the Northern Residents Tax Deduction, a good program, an excellent program that goes right across the country, that gives everyone in northern areas a tax break if they're in an intermediate area in the northern parts of the provinces, and in some places, including ridings which many Conservatives represent as well, they give them a break on their taxes. That's good. What was wrong with the program was it had been in place for 19 years, and the real dollar amount had never changed over that time. So I worked very hard, and in the 2007 budget, and this, Mr. Speaker, check the records, not much talk about this before that. When I got here, I worked very hard to get that into the mind of the government, and in 2007, they agreed to increase the Northern Residents Tax Deduction by 10%. We were asking for 50. Every organization in the North said 50 was the only fair amount. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce got on side for the 50%. This Conservative government realized it had a problem. The solution was, let's not offer up what's fair, let's just offer up a little bit and say, well, we've done it. Well, that's what they did, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for the 10%. You know, everyone appreciates that. That's a couple $100 a year extra jack in the pocket of the average northerner and the average rural person. Great, but it wasn't enough. It isn't clearly not enough. So there's more work to be done there with the tax system to improve the lives of people in the regions of this country that make money for this country. And when this Conservative government, who wants to give away huge tax revenue from banks, from oil companies, from that same mining industry, from those that extract the wealth out of this country, when it wants to do that and not put money back into those regions, into the pockets of young people that want to build the region, want to build this country, that's sad, Mr. Speaker. That's a real sad statement that I have to make here today in this Parliament about this nature of this Conservative government that would stand up against this bill, would stand up against the idea of the bill. Sure, the bill has issues, but these issues are issues that can be worked out. This is not it's the principle of the bill is fine. The idea that we're using the tax system to enhance the ability of people to live in northern or rural regions, the idea that we're supporting Canadians in their efforts to build a better country, build a country that will be successful in the 21st century. What is wrong with that, Mr. Speaker? What is wrong with these Conservatives that can't see past the end of their nose on this question of tax breaks? Mr. Speaker, I'm glad this is Friday. I'll have time to unwind over the weekend and return to Parliament with a slightly better feeling about my members on the opposite benches. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.